Tonight, Channel 4 celebrates the 40th anniversary of the making of the very first Carry On film, Carry On Sergeant, in 1958.
Oh, good. Very good.
And we try to discover just what goes into making the perfect Carry On.
Top secret Formula X, page 1.
Quick, start the tape recorder.
First, you need an idea. This is usually a send-up of a national institution. It could be the army, the NHS, or the police.
Turned rather chilly all of a sudden, isn't it?
It might be historical.
I must congratulate you. You've always had magnificent balls.
Or just taking the mickey out of a particular film style. Then we have the script, which must contain bucket loads of innuendos and double entendres.
Well, Mr. Potters, you took her into the woods. How far did you go?
Oh, not very far, because I've only known her a year.
Assemble your tried and trusted cast. Sir James.
Tonight's the night, eh?
Kenneth Williams.
You wouldn't dare!
Charles Autry. Hattie Jakes.
You won't be disappointed.
Jim Dale.
Anyone for casualty?
Joan Sims.
Well, I've had no complaints so far.
And then, of course, there's me.
Oh, cheeky.
Give yourself a budget of a couple of £100, about 6 weeks to film it all in, and you're off.
I have it. The formula. Oh, she's told them everything. They've got it on tape.
A recipe for a carry-on film.
Bawdiness.
Kenneth Williams mincing about.
They're infantile, facile, puerile.
Big boobs.
Almost not.
Bottoms.
Farting.
Sex. Sex. Sex.
Don't be afraid of repeating a joke once, twice, and thrice. It's the boom-de-boom-de-boom.
You look back on them, they retain a magical quality, and they're just wonderful. And they got away with murder.
Infamy! Infamy! They've all got it in for me!
Carry-on films work on many levels. Children like them because you don't need to understand what the people are saying or what the plot is, because it works on a visual level. Knickers fall off, bras fly off, people fall downstairs, trolleys go everywhere, doctors, fall into nurses' beds and stuff like that. And it's fantastically innocent. It's just like the cinematic equivalent of a pantomime.
Oh! Dr. Tinkham!
And I think for adults, you just love the ghastly scripts and the really, really cringy double entendre. You can't believe that they come out with these lines.
I will now remove the second stool.
Bring on the dancing girls. Get rid of this idiot. Fuck you. Off.
The basic gags have to do with bottoms, bosoms, bodily functions of every kind, going to the lavatory or failing to do so, a very important theme.
Excuse me, sir, but my friend and I, we're doing spot diagnosis, and I was wondering if you could help me. Now, I'd say you've got hemorrhoids, and he thinks it's a slip disc. Now, could you tell us?
Let me see now. You thought it was a slip disc.
That's right.
I'm afraid you were wrong. And you thought it was hemorrhoids.
That's right.
I'm afraid you were wrong.
Well, what then?
As a matter of fact, I thought I was going to break wind. I'm afraid I was wrong. The idea of humour as a broad expression of English vulgarity is actually very famous. I mean, the English were always famous for that. In the 18th century, people were amazed at the things that the British laughed at. and that has gone on. We do have a quite different tradition, which is elegant wit, but that's not here, is it?
Good morning, Dr. Soper. Are we all loaded?
Not half.
Oh, is that our driver?
Yes, Mr. Tanner. You can call me Jim.
Hello, Jim. Are you going to stay with us all the time?
Oh, yeah. I'll go all the way.
Oh, I bet you do.
And also, I think it's all good, clean fun. You know, all the women have big tits and nice rounded bottoms. And you just don't get that anywhere in any other kind of film.
Can't help admiring those. They're beauties, aren't they?
Oh!
No!
There's a kind of innocence about them that's just really endearing.
If a carry-on is innocent, then I've been doing it wrong all these years. Maybe there is an innocence about them. Maybe that's why they get away with the comedy. I mean, say, if Barbara Windsor presented herself as, forgive the expression, a prostitute, we wouldn't accept the comedy. Because she has an innocence about her, we accept it. Yes, that's probably a very good... I'd never thought of it. I should remember that.
I always knew when, like one of my friend's sons, I got about 12 or 13, and I was always Auntie Barbara. Hello, Auntie Barbara, how are you? And then one day, it was, oh, yeah, hello, they couldn't look at me because they'd seen Camping, and it was their first magic little moment.
And fling and in. And fling and in. And fling. Oh, matron, take them away.
That is just a comedy classic that's lasted decades.
Stop laughing!
I think they are family films, because actually, although they're almost exclusively sometimes, I think, about sex, this is a very innocent kind of sex. You know, it's a sex that's not harmful, that's entirely harmless.
Do you favour the Swedish method? Well, I always say it's the same the whole world over.
Shall we have a demonstration, Miss Alcock?
Righto. Now, hands on hips, please. To the left!
It's amazing when you look back at carry-on films how many of them are set either in school gymnasiums or with PE teachers or on the beach. Just like any excuse to show women in shorts and bras, really.
Forward. Then. Oh, that's smashing.
Brother Bernard!
A lot of them are set in English holiday camps and English seaside places because that was cheap.
They used to, I don't know, kid us that we were going to go on location, although we knew we weren't. They really feel and look like what it was like growing up in Britain. And it's just, you can just almost smell, what's it they lit your Primus stove with? I mean, we didn't have tea in a thermos flask. We had to have a Primus stove and egg sandwiches, and the wind was always blowing the sand in the egg sandwich. It's all kind of part of carry-on films, and it doesn't matter if they're about Henry VIII or Egypt. They'd be probably filmed at Canberra Sands. It's like a kind of comedy version of Disneyland. You go in, it's always the same. Scenery might be different, costumes might be different. It's going to be the same old gags, the same old Kenneth Williams mincing about, Charles Hawtrey. They do the same thing in all the films.
Legion! Legion! Present! Arms! Was ist das? Capitale Peace!
Oui, oui. Hello, did anybody call?
Capitale Peace!
Come on, burger.
Look!
Spring flowers.
Spring flowers?
Early bloomers.
This is no joke! Pull those bloomers down!
The essential ingredients of a good carry-on film. You've got to get the cast right. It was a prerequisite as a child. I had to see Kenneth Williams, Sid James, and Barbara Windsor. So they would be my three favourites. And I felt cheated if Kenny or Barbara or Sid weren't in them.
I always adored Kenneth Williams, and I was very, very excited a few years ago, before he died, to do a couple of television shows with him, and people thought it was really funny, but I kind of hero-worshipped him because that ghastly voice, where it came from, you couldn't imagine, and he could string every word into thousands of syllables, and he really hogs the camera. I mean, I did learn quite a lot from him, actually.
I'll tell you what, perhaps we could discuss this over a quiet little dinner tonight, just the two of us.
Oh, that would be rather nice.
The pleasure would be all mine, matron.
Oh, well, I think I can promise you, Doctor, you won't be disappointed. Young chickens may be soft and tender, but the older birds have more on them.
True. It'll take a lot more stuffing.
I was sharing a dressing room with Kenneth Williams in 1949. And it was there, in that dressing room, that Kenneth Williams got his posh voice, because he used to what he called his Felix Aylmer voice, because Felix Aylmer was an old actor, and he talked rather like that. And Kenneth was talking like that. And that voice he subsequently used for the rest of his career.
You think so? Yes. Yes, you may be right.
They were definitely comic actors, and people make a big mistake here when they think they're a bunch of comedians. They were all very good actors.
What do you mean by that?
Kenneth Williams would have been furious if you'd called him a comedian.
Oh, shut up, you silly old faggot.
Don't you dare speak my daddy like that!
Well, he gets on your nerves. I'm sorry, dear, but I'm fed up with listening to all his visions and omens and stuff.
Seneca is well known throughout Rome as a truly great sage.
Yes, and I know my onions. I wish you'd been in Britain. They know what to do with sage and onions there.
All their speaking styles are so radically different. It's just such a brilliant combination of people. It's just a delight. It's a real ensemble.
It looks like we'll have to proceed with the removal as planned, Mr. Bigger.
I fear so, Mr. Roper. What removal? Removal? Good. Have you ever seen such a horrible one?
Sid James was always my favourite, because the Carry On films at the best always cast him in romantic leads. So in Carry On Up the Khyber, you know, he plays the governor who's always having tiffin, which of course is a synonym for sex in these films. And of course it gave hope to all those men who didn't look like Michael Redgrave or Laurence Olivier. So at that level, you know, he was sort of our man in the romantic lead.
So, you're the Carty's number?
3.
3, eh? Oh, please sit down.
Thank you.
Very nice, too.
I have come because my lord and master has taken your woman.
Yes, it's been a terrible shock to me, terrible. He's done me a great wrong.
True. I have come to right that wrong.
Funny, I was hoping you'd say that. Excuse me. Shorthouse?
Sir?
Don't disturb us, please. We're going to have a bit of tipping.
It's not time for tiffin, sir.
Mind your own business. Any time is tipping time.
I don't care if you're old, lined, going grey. I prefer you that way. Yes, Wellington, I want to do my packing in the bags under your eyes.
Done and deliver! That's just what I was about to do.
And about time, too.
In Carry On Dick, I've never ridden a horse in my life. And by then I knew Sid quite well, and he said, "You don't ride an horse, do you?" I said, "Don't tell Gerald, please don't tell Gerald." I said, "He'll get angry, he'll get angry." I said, "It won't show. Believe me, I'll make it like that. I'll perform it like it doesn't show." And he said, "Well, come on." He took me in some back field. He said he was going to teach me to ride an horse, but it turned out to be a bit more than that. He said, "And now we'll teach you to ride an horse." Oh, dear.
Stop! If you value your lives, don't make a move.
What do you want?
Which one of you is looking for Big Dick?
He is.
I've always said no one person, you know, was Carry On. It's like EastEnders is EastEnders, Coronation Street, you know. They're the stars, and people come in and out, and if some, you know, great character, very popular character goes, they go, oh, that's it, that's the end. No, of course not. And it was like Carry Ons, like, you know, you'd get it, you'd go into the cinema, you pay your money, you go in, and you suddenly say, oh, that's a shame, Sid's not in this one. But you'd watch it.
And that was the interesting thing about the carry-ons. You could see that they'd say, well, we've got Charles Hawtrey, we've got Kenneth Williams, we've got Sid James, Hattie Jakes, Barbara Windsor, Jack Douglas, all these wonderful characters, plus you'd have to be peppered with people like Bernard Cribbins and Frankie Howard. So you sit down, you look at a script, and whoever it was it Peter Rogers? I don't know who it was, who said, now, Charles Hawtrey would obviously be brilliant playing this. And could Kenny get away with this? And what about Barbara? But she's got those magnificent breasts, so what can we do with those?
Oh, what a lovely-looking pair.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
The whole carry-on setup can be traced back to Donald McGill postcards and to all sorts of classic types. A big, busty blonde is a folkloric figure, and Barbara Windsor just had all the right equipment to play that eternal role.
Oh, I can hardly believe it. Little me in the King's Arms.
Well, it's the best boozer in town.
With all those beautiful ladies in there, why on earth did you pick on me?
Yeah, there's a couple of things, I suppose.
Oh, Madge, you're only after one thing.
Why? What's the matter with the other one?
All the most successful British comedies have these very, very strong stereotypes, whether it's One Foot in the Grave, Steptoe and Son, or the whole carry-on genre. The films work because everybody's a stereotype.
It doesn't matter what their sexual orientation, what their social standing, or what their nationality. You know, this is the worm's eye view of the world, and from the worm's eye view, everybody looks comic.
I was in Blackpool a little while ago, and I started to giggle. And my mate said to me, what are you laughing at, Bar? I said, have a look at this. I said, it's Carry On. There was the old lech, Sid going, there was the kids going, there was the the fat lady, like Hattie Jakes. There was the camp one walking down, mincing down the pier, which was Charlie. And then there was this bosomy blonde looking more like me than me. And it's part of British way of life, isn't it?
How about the other half?
Eh?
Another one of those.
Oh, Tar. Have you got a large one?
I've had no complaints so far.
Seeing's believing.
You won't need a magnifying glass.
Ooh. Bottoms up.
Is that what it is? You could have fooled me.
Just a minute, Mr. York.
Hello, what's that?
For your bow. Sit down, please.
You, given one of these before?
Oh, good gracious. Hundreds. Get it down now. Other end, nurse.
Never mind. With a face like mine, it's a mistake anyone might make.
You know, they had this great cast, as it were, and then where did you get your stories from? And I think there were two basic sources. One was topical institutions, hospitals, the army, and gradually, increasingly, travel. And the other was parody.
Kiss me, Hardy.
Are you mad? What will they say at the Admiralty, sir?
They'll only be jealous.
Quiet, everyone.
To the winner.
Well, up, Sir Daisy. What do those drums say?
They say, boom, diddy, boom, diddy, boom, boom, boom.
You'll pay for that window! You'll pay for it, you hear?
Trainee Agent Daphne Honeybutt, sir.
Number?
38, 22, 35.
No, your number, not your vital thingamajigs.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I forgot where I was for the moment. Actually, it's 4711.
No. Have you had any experience?
Oh, yes, a little.
My first carry-on film was Carry On Spying. I was terribly nervous, especially of Kenny Williams, because I was a huge fan of his. And I had this scene with him where we were playing spies. I was Daphne Honeybutt, and he was 003 and a half. That 3.5 is very important, he said, darling. And anyway, and he had to have this long black beard. And I'd heard that him and Fenella Fielding weren't the greatest of friends anymore, you see. Anyway, the very first take on my very first day, and he'd kind of gone, yes, hello, you're new, aren't you? Like that. And I went to do the line, and I...
What do we do now, sir?
And he went, oh, darling, please, dear Ducky, do get it right. I looked at him. I used to be a little flash dancer in those days, and I built myself up to my 4'10½", and I said, don't you ever go at me with Fenella Fielding's minge around your chops, like that. And he went, oh, is she lovely? Oh, I love her. Oh, Jill, she's smashing. Where'd you find her? And then after that, we became the best of friends. Don't know if you can keep that in. I've told it. I've told it loads of times. No wonder Fenella doesn't talk to me whenever she sees me.
Thank you so much.
And I was trying to give it up.
I've always thought the best carry-on films were those that spoofed films. So the things that I love most are Carry On Spying, which took the kind of James Bond, or Carry On Up the Khyber, which took all those imperial films about India. And what it does is that it recasts everybody. So Sid James plays the lover, or Kenneth Williams plays a kind of strong man, which he demonstrably isn't in these kinds of films. So they're incredibly playful and mocking of all the expectations you have of movies. And I think at their best, you know, that's what makes the carry-on films marvellous, which is they're a mockery of everything everybody's held dear.
I wonder what they wanted.
When I came to England in 1964, I stayed with my grandparents for a little while, and then I came up to London, and my first job in the theatre was riding horses in Carry On Cowboy.
Now what we're going to do, mister? Play with them? Now, don't panic. It's all right. I know what to do. Form a circle. Yes, that's it. Form a circle with one coach. Oh, yes, that would be a bit difficult.
They were the curate's egg, weren't they? You know, there were great bits in all of them, and a lot of dross in all of them as well. In Carry On Cowboy, in fact, it was Jim Dale that told me, because I wasn't there on the day, and he was a very chatty person, and he said, "They've stolen my steers." He went, "Bollocks! No, it's true. They've stolen my steers." You know, it's all that kind of, I was going to say crap. It's good crap.
You'd care for a piece of pipe, wouldn't you?
Be glad to, Chief. Once talked peace with the Sioux, but you can't trust them. One minute it was peace on, the next, peace off.
It's not the individual jokes that matter. I think it's the kind of films themselves that generate a kind of warmth in you. So I always love, you know, the titles. Mrs. Alcock.
Miss Alcock.
Ding dong. Welcome to Effing House, my dears. I'm Sir Rodney Effing. 2F.
Ah, Sir Rodney. I am Count Henri de la Plume des Martantes. 1P.
Excuse me, are you going to Firkham? What do you want us to wear?
Oh, anything that'll bring out your best points, Miss,
Downs, Ida Downs.
I'm Hope Springs.
Fiddler's a name.
Robert T.T. Stuart Farquhar.
Stupid what? Stuart. Stuart Farquhar.
Who's the turban job on the throne?
Randy Lal, the Qazi of Calabar.
Carry On Up the Khyber was very good. I like the title as well. I guess because it's rhyming slang.
Too late.
I've just seen Princess Jelly, sir, and she's told me that her father has got a photograph of the inspection parade.
You mean with their things up?
Yes, I'm afraid so, sir.
Who's responsible for this treachery? You took that photograph. I'll nail him to the flagpole.
It was Lady Rough Diamond.
What, the mem? I don't believe it.
It's true, sir. The Qazi has taken her and the photograph to Jaxie.
Who?
Jaxie, sir. It's a hill town just across the border. Stronghold of Bungdit Din and his Burpers.
Oh. Well, I suppose we better go and rescue her.
Sir, you must prepare yourself for a shock. According to the princess, her ladyship is enamored of the Qazi.
The gags, some of them are so familiar now that you've got to turn the screw one more time. So the writer has to think of an extra line to throw in there. And I think what was skillful about the writing, a lot of the writing, was that it was predictable about 70% of the time and totally unpredictable for about 30%.
Keep the change.
Oh, thank you, sir. Oh, excuse me, sir. Does this pearly ring belong to you?
What? With tweeds?
Reaction shots. Now, here's a clever thing. So many young directors nowadays don't understand about getting a laugh with a reaction shot. Somebody says the line, you cut to a close-up reaction shot, and you double your laugh.
Is there something wrong, my dear?
No. No, it's quite all right.
A little more?
I don't mind.
Of course.
Lovely.
The lines were very clever, but I preferred the subtlety of the looks. And Sid James had them as well. Sid James was always giving, and the laugh, I can't do it, terrible impersonator, but Sid James's laugh told her 1,000 jokes.
Probably the best formula for Carry On is to have a cast that the audience has come to know already, but to vary it a little bit. I mean, there just has to be a refresher in there. So you drop somebody, you add somebody new.
The irregular characters were sort of like those faces you used to see from time to time. They'd appear in Dixon of Dock Green, God, I'm showing my age, or they'd appear in various dramas or comedies on the telly, like Doobit and Benny Hill show. My favourite is Esme Cannon. And was it Carry On Constable? I think it was Carry On Constable, where Kenneth Williams is new on the beat and says, "Oh, my dear, you want to go across the road?" And he takes her across the road, but clearly this woman does not want to be dragged across this road.
Wait!
It's all right, Mother. You're all right with me.
What do you want with me, Key? I ain't done nothing.
Now!
Oh. What are you doing?
All right. You don't worry. All in a day's work. There you are. That's all right, isn't it?
You're baked witch.
But I guess that was the beauty of them, because it was a stock, and they drew from the best of the British actors that were known to the audience, even if it was only for a little walk-on, a little gimmick, a little vignette. So, yes, they were irregulars that I used to enjoy.
All right, Sugar Date. Hold it right here, Sugar.
Sergeant, you have to go back now.
Oh, come on, Sugar Date. I explained to you. We had 6 wonderful days together. Heaven. It was great. It really was swinging. But, baby, I belong here. I got my work to do.
Come back now.
You're a good girl. Thanks a lot, honey. Thanks for the lift.
I have a good ass, no?
The Carry On picture has an extra dimension if it's historical, because I think costumes lend themselves to carry-ons. I mean, so the early ones that I wasn't in, but all the Carry On Up the Khyber, Don't Lose Your Head, and Carry On Screaming, were all costume pieces, and I think they work tremendously well.
Tony, I am undone. My end is in sight.
Well, you better do yourself up again. Quick, you can't meet her like that. What's the matter with him?
We've seen visions. Oh, they were lovely.
Visions? What visions?
Me lying on the floor of the bedchamber with a dagger in me vitals.
Yes, that one was quite good, but I prefer the one of her in her bath.
Yes, well, you don't want to pay too much attention to visions. They all get distorted and out of proportion.
You're quite right. She was a bit much here and there.
There's no doubt that the Carry On films tap into a long tradition of English humour, you know, that's full of double entendre. For instance, you know, in a John Donne poem, you know, somebody's said to suck on country pleasures. Well, we can all think of the puns involved in that. And the English have always loved wordplay. And at that level, Carry On films are very low wordplay.
Here we show you the excavation of a typical Stone Age dwelling. The lady uncovering the site is Miss Amelia Fosdyke, who learned her skillful techniques under Professor Schwindelhofer of Utrecht. Notice the typical upland scenery. Neolithic man always preferred those areas, as the lower regions were often foresty and inclined to be swampy.
All the films are totally predictable. But it doesn't matter in the slightest, not in the slightest. You could almost predict any script, but, you know, that doesn't matter. They're all totally interchangeable.
Excuse me, madam, I don't think you've noticed what I've got here.
That doesn't scare me. I've seen bigger ones in my time.
That doesn't surprise me.
My, but you got a big one.
I'm from Texas, ma'am. We all got big ones down there.
That is a very big one you have there, is it not, Mr. Woozy?
Eh? Oh, this? Yes, well, I'm going hunting, you see. I'll see if I can bag something for supper.
I see. Game?
Anytime. If you are.
They're the kind of jokes that people have already been telling before you see them on the postcard or in the show. And a lot of the humour in Carry On is recognition humour.
I think there's a certain kind of art, you know, whether it's horror films or Bach's cantatas, just to be really portentous, okay, which actually feed off predictability. They've got a very small repertoire, and actually it's playing variations. And I think the Carry On films are like that.
Silly baby, I told you we'd... Hold it! What's happened to the camera now? Have you been hit, sir? Yes, in many places. Have some water, sir. I'll make you feel better.
The minute they come on screen, you're comfortable. You know, you more or less know the script, and it's very comforting viewing. It's undemanding, but it relaxes you. It repays your time. And so much of television and film nowadays is a chore. You sit down and you watch it. You're bored, rigid, or it's really miserable. And what have you got back? And I think in a world where people do feel under stress, this kind of innocent humour will always be popular. People will always want to, you know, watch a Carry On film and kind of switch off and just have a laugh.
My favourite Carry On setting easily is Carry On Cabby, because as a child I was always car mad, and the Ford Cortina had just come out, Mark I, and when Hattie Jakes decided to deceive Sid James, who was running this cab company, she bought a whole load of Ford Cortinas, and she said, right, we're going to start our own mini-cab service, and they did. They had glam cabs, all these gorgeous girls. I thought, this is outrageous.
Right, girls. This is it.
I want you to get out there and grab all the business from under their smug male noses. I don't care how you do it. Within reason, just get the fares in your cabs. In the back of the cab, dear, with you in the front.
And the good thing was, it did, as I say, reflect true life at the time, which was this major news story where there were fights in the streets of London between the black taxi cabs and the minicabs. So the setting of the forecourt for Carry On Cabby, yes, please, love it, still love it to this day.
It's very nice, for instance, to see Hattie Jakes when she's being so shitty to the nurses, so awful to the nurses, and then when melting, when Kenneth Williams comes on the scene, you know, and she becomes coquettish and flutters her eyelashes.
Matron, please, I'm not that kind of doctor.
Don't deny yourself, Kenneth. We've wasted so many years. This is our moment of fulfillment.
But I don't want to feel fulfill. I mean, you don't understand. I mean, this sort of thing could ruin my training program.
Oh, forget about that, Kenneth.
I can't forget it. It's my duty to keep myself fit and strong. You may not realize it, but I was once a weak man.
Once a week's enough for any man.
Jim Dale on the doctor's trolley. In fact, I wish they still did things like that in Casualty, because it's all got so serious.
Oh,
no! There was a magic moment I'm really, really proud of. It was a gavotte. And he was a dancer, Sid, and I was a dancer. And I was so thrilled when we got the whole thing. We'd only learnt it that morning and did it in one take.
I bet you got plenty of it in Spain, eh?
Oh, no. They never let me be alone with anyone long enough.
No, dancing, I mean.
Oh, yes. But it's very different there, you know. You see, there's these two things.
Yes, I noticed those.
They call them castanets.
Oh, that's a new name for them.
And all the time you're dancing, they keep knocking together.
Yes, I noticed that too.
Carry On Constable I found rather funny, especially the scene where the two, Kenneth Williams and Hawtrey, get into drag, and there's a certain kind of joy from these two men. It does slightly go beyond just acting. There's a kind of joy in getting into the frocks and camping it up.
Do you know, I haven't done this since I was in the army, at a camp concert.
This is no laughing matter, Gorse.
I say, you mustn't call me that. Not when we're on special duty.
Oh, yes. Well, Agatha, then.
Thank you. And I shall call you, now let me see.
Call me Ethel. It's my grandma's name.
Oh, if Grandmama could see you now, she'd be so proud.
Well, to work. To work. Are you ready, Agatha?
If you are, Ethel.
Let's go.
It's not only in Carry On films, in virtually every British comedy show, somebody sooner or later gets into drag.
Well, the men that they make dress up in drag are always the most unsuitable men physically. So if it's someone like Bernard Bresslaw, it's a hoot before it even starts. And it's all very refreshing in an era when you've got men dressing up as women very, very well. So you've got people like RuPaul who just look like a woman at the end of it. I mean, I never quite see the point of dressing up as a woman so you just look like a woman. What's really funny is seeing a man dress up like a woman who looks like this strange hybrid.
No room, sir. I would be very grateful if you take her on. It means quite a lot to me, and she is a very distinguished person. This is Dr. Nookie, my dear. How do you do?
Oh, hello.
You can see her ladyship's trouble. She is top-heavy.
Definitely. The top is heavy.
The top is heavy, you see. Interferes with her riding and gets in the way of the horse's head. Can't see where you're going, can you, my dear? No, poor thing. I hope you'll start the treatment right away, Doctor. This evening, I hope?
Well, of course. Actually, we're full up at the moment, so if you don't mind sharing a room with someone else.
Oh, no. As long as it's with another man.
Good. I beg your pardon?
No, no.
I love Charlie Hawtrey because his timing was immaculate. They were all, let me tell you, they all were great performers and all had wonderful timing. They really did. I think it's because they were great theatre performers, you know. But there was something about Charlie. I didn't know when he walked in, he went, oh, hello.
Look here. Hello. Oh, hello. Oh, hello.
It was a bit like Marlene Dietrich. He knew where to catch the lights. I mean, he wasn't the greatest looking gentleman, was he? But he was sometimes become very attractive.
I leapt to my feet. I seized the sword, and I laid into them. Take that, take that, take this, take that, take this, take that. And I must say they took it very well.
How many did you kill?
Oh, 6, 7.
6 or 7? What a bloody sight it must have been.
Oh, my dear, if my sword hadn't broke, it'd have been a bloody sight more.
And most of those actors gave it what I call plenty of stick, and that lifted it up. You see, we'd lost the technique, I'm convinced, at that time, of allowing actors to have their head. All the British film directors used to say, now, come on, keep it down, keep it down. But in the Carry On films, they didn't say keep it down. They gave it terrific energy.
You're drunk. Put your hands.
Miss Alcock.
Or I'll flatten you out like a carpet, you slanderous cat.
You could say that these, you know, are collective and collaborative films, in which they're films as much by Barbara Windsor and Bernard Bresslaw, let's say, and Kenneth Williams, as they are about General Thomas or Rothwell or whoever. I think they're genuinely collaborative efforts.
The really great performers like Hattie Jacques and Joan Sims, Sid James, they are real British stars. And it makes me so cross when people witter on about Powell and Pressburger and Kubrick and all these other great English directors. But actually, with Hammer films, and with the Carry On films, you have the two strongest categories of British films since the war. But of course, ordinary people like them, common people like them. You can't call them art films. But to me, they are popular art.
It's disgusting, that's what it is, disgusting.
What are you talking about disgusting? It's artistic.
What you get in a carry-on film is you get slapstick, panto, broad humour, hopeless innuendo, things that transcend age and gender and country. So it doesn't surprise me at all young people like them. And also, it is slightly politically incorrect. And we're surrounded by magazines and newspapers all being right on and, you know, talking about men doing housework and roles, well, you know, the sad role of the man in the end of the 20th century. And then you look at a Carry-On film and it's a fantastic relief because it's totally politically incorrect.
You rotten cow!
Comedy knows no boundaries, or should know no boundaries. And when people say, oh, you mustn't mention that, it's not politically correct, rubbish. If it's fun and if it's not offensive, then don't let it be considered politically offensive. I'm sorry, but that gets me going.
This is a battle I have all the time with TV producers when I sort of say, can I get away with this? Can I get away with that? Let's do the naughty postcard thing. And they go, Del, you can't say that because it is politically incorrect. And I go, but the Carry-Ons were doing it 30 years ago. And they say, but life has changed. And for that reason, I'm a little sad, because it was innocent and it was fun, and sometimes just a little look went, yeah, you knew what they're getting at. And that works for me.
Good hunting, sire.
Thank you. I'll save the brush for you.
Walk on.
Well, 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 my pretty. Don't be frightened.
Who are you? And what do you want?
Just a hunter looking for some sport.
You look like a gentleman to me.
Don't let the clothes fool you. Come here. Come here. Come here.
They were incredibly sexist. I think, you know, the Beatles and the 60s and Flower Power and all that kind of stuff came in, and they were anachronistic, and you couldn't actually have, you know, a girl's bra falling off was not a big deal. I mean, everybody's bras were off by 1968. You know, big bonfire of them in Hyde Park.
Social change made the conditions that they're making less and less relevant, and that's why they had to go down in order to come up again. They had to go through the period of decline before they were revived as nostalgia.
I remember I was doing a musical, Guys and Dolls, and suddenly out of nowhere came this Carry-On script, Carry On Columbus, and I thought, oh, marvellous. I'll be down there at Pinewood and hello, Tom, on the gate, you know. It would be wonderful. And I got the script, I remember, I got it on a Saturday, and I read it, and I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it. It was all the things I've just said. It was like a bad confessions film. It was crude. It was awful. And I plunked it down and went for a walk around the block, came back, thought, no, this is very unfair. I've got to read it properly. And I read it properly, and I wish I hadn't read it properly, and I went out and got rat-arsed, darling, because I was very, very sad.
Well, what's this lot, then? Garden ornaments and pottery?
No, this is medicinal herbs from China.
This one is a rhubarb. Uh-huh. And what of the other one? Oh, this one is ginger. Oh, is he? Well, perhaps you better give him a stick of rhubarb, then.
If you have a successful format, you do not change it. You may decide to bring it up to date, to modernize it, whatever, naturally, but you don't change the format because it's worked. And I think that is the personification of the Carry-On pictures. The format worked completely. When did they change it? Carry On England, Carry On Emmanuel, Carry On Columbus. 3 films which didn't really work.
Shove that in the captain.
In the captain?
No. The captain!
What would be my subject for a Carry-On film now? I mean, the obvious one, there are 2 really. I'd do Carry On Up the Millennium Dome and give it some funny title like Carry On Up the Erection, because it's a building erection, you see what I mean? But that would be too politically incorrect. The other thing I would do would be Carry On Car Boot Sale, but I'd probably call it something like Carry On Rear Hatchback, something like that.
If anybody was foolish enough to make a Carry-On film now, I think the only target you could take would be politics.
Carry On Tsar Yeltsin would make a glorious movie.
The thing to do would be to parody what was popular in the rest of the world, you know. What was that? Titanic would be a kind of thing, wouldn't it? Carry On Titanic, with a surprise ending.
Keywords would be A, English, B, vulgar, and C, serial. That's to say, just keeping on going, carrying on, carrying on.
And now for our main feature, a perfect carry-on. Just when you thought it was safe to turn over.
Honestly, I don't know where to look.
I do.
Your favourite gangsters reunite for one night only to tell the greatest stories ever told.
Carry on chopping.
We have a bevy of beautiful girls. Girls! Girls? Real men. Men! Men? a bucket full of slapstick and a lot of tickle. It's explosive. It'll put a twinkle in your eye and lead in your pencil. You'll be glued to your seat. You won't believe your eyes. So get to the front of the queue to avoid disappointment.
Only one thing remains to be said. Carry on.